time on the time my intuition quietly prepared me for something I did not even see coming. For about a week, I kept getting this urge to check my windows on the sun porch and the door. So I continuously kept going out there to make sure that the windows and the doors were locked, but there was no fear to it. I didn't feel unsafe. It was kind of like I was on autopilot, like I was just doing it to do it. I had no fear attached to it. Now, this was out of the norm for me because I don't typically go out there over and over again to do that, because those windows and the doors are always locked anyway. So it was just kind of very strange for me to do that, but I wasn't thinking, hey, this is strange of me to do it. I was just doing it. Now, I want you to remember this specific part. There was a day during that week that I was walking out of my car, and I got this sudden thought that somebody was going to walk up to my car and look into my car and see that I have a car seat, and they would know that I have a child in the house. And again, this thought had no fear attached to it. It was kind of like an observation, like it just kind of came in really quick and left, and I didn't think about it again. I also didn't connect anything to it. Like I wasn't thinking about me continuously locking my window. Like nothing clicked for me at that time. But this is just an example of how quiet your intuition really is and how easy it is to miss it. So let's fast forward to a morning later on in that week and watch how this all falls together. I decided to sit down at my kitchen table and eat my breakfast that morning, which is not usual for me. I do not sit at the table and eat my breakfast because I'm always doing something. Like I always have something to do, so I'll usually like eat it at the counter and I'll just get stuff done. But for some reason, I decided to sit at my kitchen table and eat my breakfast that morning. And as I'm sitting there eating my food, I look over at my window in the kitchen because I have windows connected to the sun porch. So if I look out that window, I can see in the sun porch and I can see the window outside to go outside. And as I'm looking out at that window, I see 2 handprints right on the window. Now, one of the handprints was just a regular handprint and the other one was smudged. So, which automatically went through my mind of, hey, someone tried opening up this window, but their hand slipped. I immediately went on the sun porch and looked at the window and was just sick to my stomach. I looked at the other 2 windows. There were handprints on those windows as well. So of course I'm going through my mind like, I've been getting the thought we'd need cameras for the house. We need the cameras for the house. We didn't get them. We have them now. But what am I supposed to do? Call the police and be like, hey, I found handprints on my window. Like, obviously they're going to be like, okay, let me know when something actually happens. So whatever. I'm like on such high alert. Like, I'm ready. So of course I tell my mom what happened, and life goes on. 2 weeks pass by. My mom calls me. I don't watch the news, okay? I just don't. But my mom always watches the news. She tells me that a man got caught breaking into houses around my neighborhood. This is where it gets good. They caught this man, okay? They caught this man outside of a child's window with his pants down. So yes, immediately I thought about the windows and I was like, this is why I kept going out there to lock the windows. But when my mom told me that about that man outside of that child's window, I was like, that's why I got that thought about someone looking into my car and seeing that I had a little child in the house. Listen, your intuition is not meant to scare you, okay? It's not meant to scare you. Would God scare you? No. God doesn't want to scare you. Intuition is meant to prepare you. It's never going to put you in a state of fear. Listen, if you get a sudden urge to do something that you don't typically do, or just even at all, just don't be lazy. Just get up and do it. You never know. You just never know.
I'm not imagining this. It's like 1:30 in the morning. It is. It's 1:30 in the morning. I'm at a hotel by myself, minding my own business, about to drift off to sleep, and I get a freaking call from the phone that's in the hotel room, like the landline phone. I didn't even know those worked anymore. And I answer. I get up, I answer, and it's the guy from the front desk that I've been seeing like all freaking day, who's made me feel uncomfortable. And he's like, hey, there's a pizza down here for you. And I was like, I didn't order a pizza. And he was like, well, please take it. It has your room number on it. I was like, that's not possible. I didn't order it. And he's like, well, what's your room number? And I was like, you know what my room number is because you called my room. Definitely one of the creepier nights of my life. A lot of you guys have asked for an update, so here it is. After this guy knocked at my door and told me that I had a pizza waiting for me that I did not order, but apparently my room number was written on top in big numbers on top of the pizza, which, you know, I was like, that's not possible. I didn't order this. It's 1:30 in the morning, you weirdo. He was like, no, you need to have this pizza. You need to have this pizza. You need to have this pizza. I was like, I don't want the pizza. I don't want the pizza. And for those of you who are like, why were you up at 1:30 in the morning? I'm up late most nights. All right. I'm working on it. And I was watching the movie Long Legs, which didn't help. Don't watch it by yourself. It's scary. I was in the bathroom, as you saw that in the video, and I completely froze. I froze up for sure. I couldn't believe what was happening. I did have my door latched, luckily, so like if he had tried to open the door, if he had access, because apparently he was on staff, he could open the door, but it would just like spring back because I had that. And I had my dog absolutely barking the ever-living shit out of her lungs. Bring your dogs, ladies, when you're traveling, especially by yourself. But yeah, he ended up crying. He ended up slumping against my door, sitting against the door, crying. And I caved eventually, and I said, why are you crying? Please stop crying. Please stop crying. He said, I can't help it. Can't help it. I'm a Cancer. I'm feeling so much right now, and I really wanted you to have this pizza. So, you know, I basically figured out that he got the pizza for me and wanted to deliver it to me. And I was like, I don't want that pizza. And he was like, please, can I please push it under the door to you? Please, there's a little bit of space. Can I push it under the door to you? I was like, please don't push it under the door. And the pizza would be ruined if you did that. So it doesn't make sense, does it? And he was like, well, if you're not going to eat the pizza, can I please eat the pizza to make myself feel better? I was like, please eat the pizza. Just eat the pizza, but promise me you'll leave after you eat it. He was like, okay. So he cried and he cried and he cried and he cried and he ate the pizza in front of my door. And then he left. He apologized, and I eventually got so tired just sitting up in the bathroom, like I fell asleep. Like as soon as my nervous system calmed down, I must have fallen asleep, because then I woke up like basically in the spot that I fell asleep in, and I looked out the eye hole. No one was there. When I opened my door in the morning, the only thing I found was a little piece of paper on the ground, and it was a stick figure drawing of what I assume was supposed to be the two of us. It was a boy and a girl stick figure with a heart in between us. And he wrote the word forever under it.
Yeah. This is the story of the craziest travel experience I have ever had. I've never told this story before, but I think it's time. So a couple of years ago, my sister and I arrived in Barcelona, and we were staying in like a self-contained apartment. So we messaged the host to say that we'd arrived. They met us, and immediately in the lobby, they let us in, and they were saying like, the lift is broken, it's being fixed right now, but we have to carry everything up to level 2. You're going to level 2, okay? We're going to level 2, and kept repeating level 2. And I was like, okay, all good. And then what I didn't realize at the time, or I didn't realize was relevant at the time, was that there was someone else on this floor who was obviously paying attention to the floor that we were headed to. We get up to the room, it's all normal, we have a nap, and then we notice that the passport safe isn't working, and we wanted to put our passports in there when we went out. So we texted the host, and they came back, and when I opened the door for them, there was this pair of like men's slippers, like leather house shoes almost, like angled up on our door. So when I opened the door, they fell into the room, and I looked down at them and I was like, that's so weird. And I kicked them out into the hallway because I didn't really think anything of it. I thought that someone maybe got our apartment confused with theirs. There was only 2 apartments on our floor, but anyway. The host comes in, fixes the passport safe, leaves, fine. My sister and I get ready to go out for dinner. It's Europe, so we're eating late. It's like 9:30 by the time we leave, and we open the door, and these shoes are up against the door again, and they fall into the room. And I'm staring at these shoes like, this was one of those times where I really had to like listen to my gut, listen to my intuition. I told my sister, and she was also a bit like, that's super weird, but we kind of were like, let's not deeper, it's fine. And then maybe like 5 minutes into walking to the restaurant, my sister was like, I reckon that's sus. I was like, I reckon it's sus too. So we're sitting at this beautiful restaurant. At this point, it's like 10:30, and it was the best meal we had on our trip, but we were so consumed by trying to figure out this situation that we didn't really get to enjoy it. The waitress came over, she was local, and we explained the situation to her, and she said, you can't go back there on your own tonight. And we were like, okay, fuck. She said basically, I think someone is trying to mark your apartment. For what purpose, we don't know, we'll never know, but like someone is trying to like either tell someone else that you're in that apartment, or like who knows. So we were like, shit, all right. My sister is so brave. She texted the host and was like, tell us what the fuck's going on. I was like, the host was really vague and was just kind of like, there's nothing to worry about. And we were like, okay, well, sure. And we were like, were they someone else's shoes? Like, kind of asking questions. And the host just kept being like, I'll talk to them. There's nothing to worry about. There's nothing to worry about. There was something to worry about. So then my sister and I just went with our gut, and thank God we like trusted our intuition here. We looked for the nearest hotel that had like 24-hour concierge, because it was like 10:30 at night at this point. So we found one and we walked there because it was quite close to the restaurant, to just check that they did have a room and that we could check in. Like, by that stage it would have been like midnight when we actually got there with our bags. We told them at the front desk what had happened. They did have one room. It was so fucking expensive, but we had to take it. And we told them what happened. It was a woman and a man on security, and they were both like, you can't go back there on your own tonight. And we were like, oh, fuck. So the woman, who was like actually finished her shift, she just finished like a whole day of work, walked back with us, which was like the most generous thing I think anyone could have done. She walked back with us to this apartment, and she was talking about how growing up in Barcelona, a similar thing had happened to her, and that, you know, when she was living alone, she would often have her apartment marked, like something put on the door. So she walked back with us to our apartment. We get in the front door. The elevator's working. Like, I don't know if the elevator was ever broken, to be honest. We go up to our room and we go to use our key on the door, and our keys don't work anymore. We try mine, we try my sister's. It's like a red-green kind of thing, and it was just red, red, red. So we text the host and say, why isn't our door working? And the host goes, oh, I'm actually in the building. I'll come up and help you. It's like 12 something at night at this point. Why are you in the building? And like, why are you awake? And why did you know that our keys weren't going to work, kind of thing? So the host comes up to our floor, sees the woman in hotel uniform, and like the eyes immediately go like, obviously whatever was going to happen, thank God we'll never know. They go over to our door, hit it with a coin, like hit like some kind of magnet, I don't know what, but they hit the doorknob with a coin, and then the door just swings open. None of our stuff was gone or anything. The host left immediately, like did not hang around. We packed our shit as fast as we possibly could, and this woman stood by the door. And I also think about her all the time, because she didn't know what that situation was going to be. She didn't know if that situation was going to be dangerous, and she put herself in potential risk. Like, she was honestly incredible. She stood by the door while we packed. We honestly were out of there in 3 minutes, and walked back to the hotel, and then paid a fortune, but we were safe. We obviously reported the apartment and the host to relevant whatevers, but that was the craziest travel experience I've ever had, and the best example of listening to your gut and just knowing when to trust your intuition on something. Like, we could have easily just been like, that's such a weird coincidence, but we fucking knew something was up. Loved Barcelona otherwise. Great place. And the second hotel, as much as it was bougie, I wasn't mad.
Tell me your craziest story about intuition and how it ended up being true. I want to be freaked out. I want to hear these stories and be like, what?
Okay, but you asked for it. We're going to go back 14 years ago. I had invited my friend over who was supposedly pregnant, just like I was. We were both 18, and I don't know, just everything seemed like normal. The whole reason that she had came to my house was because she wanted to give me baby shower gifts, and she wasn't able to make it to my baby shower. What's the harm, right? Well, as the night goes on, everybody leaves my house, and it's just me and her. At this point, I start to get all these weird feelings. Honestly, feelings that I can't even explain. She had this gift for me that she stated needed to be shown to me in the dark because it was some type of light that shined on the ceiling for my son. She told me to stand in the middle of my room, turn around, and close my eyes as she tried to dig through this bag looking for the present. As that started to happen, I started to have these weird thoughts. It wasn't even just weird thoughts. It was almost like somebody was whispering, telling me what was going to happen before it even happened. So these thoughts, or this voice that I was hearing, was telling me like, Angelique, you're about to be stabbed. You're about to get hurt. Like, it just kept going over and over and over again. And at this point, I've never had this feeling before. I'm also a teenager. I don't understand what's even happening at this point. As much as I tried to ignore the feeling, I just couldn't. She told me to turn around, sit on my bed, and she got up behind me, put her hand on my shoulder, started to count to 3. She started saying 1, 2, and right when she started to say 3, it was like something told me, stand up. So I got up as fast as I could, ran, and turned the light on. There's a lot of in between, but long story short, she had 2 large butcher knives, a pair of scissors, disinfectant, and had one of everything to take my baby from my stomach. She was going to kill me, perform a C-section on my body to take my unborn child. She then set my house on fire to burn my body with all the evidence. And me and my son are literally alive and here today because of my intuition. If you're ever wondering if you should listen to it, I'm gonna say yeah.
What's a coincidence that you think about a lot? I'll go first. I think a lot about how the
So I don't think about coincidences because I don't believe in coincidences. I've told my kids since they were little, there are no coincidences. Everything that is meant to happen is meant to happen for a reason. I also believe wholeheartedly in the fact that if you meet someone and you are uncomfortable with them for any reason, you better listen to whatever that voice is saying, because you'll be sorry if you don't. My mom drove a dump truck in like the 80s, 90s, well, basically until the day she died. But one of the things that my mom could do with this company is that she could go either sometimes after work at night, or she could go on a Saturday and she could go pick up trucks from the paint shop, right? Well, this one company only dealt with a specific manufacturer of semis. Like, they were super loyal to this brand of semis. They only bought this brand. They only had them serviced at this company. It's just who they were. So my mom would head up here. I don't know, maybe she'd end up doing it like 2 to 3 times a year. But every time my mom did it, she would come home to our house and she would complain about this guy in the paint department that she picked up these trucks from. She would talk about how creepy he was, how she didn't like him, how she couldn't stand dealing with him, and how every time she just left after she picked the truck up, she just felt icky. And like she was dreading the next time that she would have to interact with this gentleman, right? Years go by. She keeps going up to this paint shop, picking these trucks up, and every time she'd be like, my God, I hate this guy. He's so creepy. I'll tell you what, he is killing people. I bet you he has killed people. And we're all just like, Mom, you're crazy. So, fast forward like a decade. And my mom, it's probably near like the end of her career driving truck. And I grew up in the Pacific Northwest. Super important part of this story. So I grew up in the Pacific Northwest, right? Where we had for many decades an unknown gentleman known as the Green River Killer running around murdering people. Now, I will tell you, I did remember that when my mom talked about this gentleman, she always referred to him as Gary, because that was the name on his uniform, right? Turns out, about a hot decade later, my mom's watching the news after she got off work, and they've just arrested the Green River Killer. Gary Ridgway, the Gary from the paint shop where my mom picked up all those trucks from, where she said, I guarantee you that guy is murdering people. So always listen to your intuition. Always.
Tell me your craziest story about intuition and how it ended up being true.
Okay, so real quick, I have 2 instances. The first one was October 2019. I was in college. It was my undergrad. It was our homecoming party, and it was also a costume party because it's October. So me and my line sisters and my pro fights were all in my apartment, me and my roommate's apartment, and we're getting dressed, we're pre-gaming, all of that, and we're getting ready to go to the party. So there were going to be a couple of people that rode with me, but they ended up not riding with me because I'm like, hey, I'm not going to stay at the party like all night. I'm going to leave early. So they ended up riding with one of my other line sisters or one of my pro fights. So it ended up just being me that was going to ride by myself. And so everyone left before me. I was still kind of like just doing some last minute stuff like hair, makeup, outfit, all that kind of stuff. And I ended up getting in my car, getting ready to go. I'm putting in my directions. and the party's like 30 minutes away. So I'm putting in my directions. I'm just basically like getting mentally ready to pull off. And then out of nowhere, I just kind of started feeling like I don't really want to go anymore. And it was a weird feeling, but it was nothing too out of the ordinary. Like, oh my gosh, I'm having this crazy feeling. No, it was just like all of a sudden I just don't feel like going anymore. And so I did kind of contemplate, like, should I go? I'm already dressed, I already have my costume on, my makeup, ladies, when you do your makeup and your hair, you're not trying to waste that. But I just didn't feel like going anymore. So I got out of my car, I went back into my apartment, and I took off my makeup and all that, and I chilled. And one of my friends came over. She also didn't go to the party. And we were just chilling and talking, and, that was that. Well, about 2 hours later, that party ended up getting shot up. 2 people passed away, 12 people were injured. There were videos on Twitter. People were talking about it. It made national news. It was crazy. Thankfully, my Pro-Fights and my Line sisters were okay, but I do feel like there's a reason why God didn't want me at that party, whether it be because I would have been in the line of fire, or maybe I just would have never recovered mentally. So that's the first instance of where I listened to my intuition, and it was a good thing that I did. The second instance actually happened a couple of months ago, probably like 2 months ago, actually. So me and my best friend, we're just talking about how we need to like make extra money. We need some side hustles, blase, blase. So she's telling me that she's gonna apply for this club to be a bartender at this club. And so my friend ends up going to the club and basically telling them that she's interested in a position, and they tell her to go back that next Tuesday. So she goes back that next Tuesday, and they basically hire her on the spot. Well, she's excited and everything, and they tell her this is going to be your start date, come back this day, blah, blah, blah. So as that day starts to roll around, she's like, I'm not really feeling like this is for me, or at least I'm not sure. And so she said she asked God, she said, God, if this is not for me, send me a sign. And she asked for the sign to be something like a man, like a man wearing pink shorts, or pink in his shorts and yellow in his shirt, something like that, right? And she said not even 5-10 minutes later, she turns around, a man has pink in his shorts and yellow in his top. Well, she took that as a sign. And yeah, you could say it was a coincidence or whatever, but I said just the fact that you even had that feeling to ask God, in my opinion, is your intuition speaking. So I said, yeah, you should take it as a sign. But what I forgot to mention is that I also had a dream before she even went to her interview that she didn't go to her interview for whatever reason. But I didn't want to say anything about it because I didn't want to make it seem like I was being negative, or like I was telling her not to go get her money, because we were both talking about getting side hustles, And so I don't want to be that person who's like, girl, no, you don't need to do that. You need to do this. Like, everybody's going to make their own decisions, So, but when she told me that, I said, well, that's weird because I had a dream that you didn't end up going. And so we both just kind of like said, noted. Like, I really feel like that was God speaking to both of us to get that message over to her. And so, we just kind of brushed it off, but we took it as a sign. So she didn't end up working there. Well, fast forward to recently, that club ended up burning down. Thankfully, no one was in the club, but still, that was definitely a sign. That was both of us. That was our intuition, and that was from God, 100%.
Tell me your craziest story about intuition and how it ended up being true.
Okay, I feel like I have a good one for this because my intuition has never screamed so loudly at me. So in May of 2017, my husband and I had just gotten married. We decided to go to Europe for our honeymoon, and one of the places we went was Paris. So when we flew into Paris, it was actually pretty late. I want to say it was about 11:30 Paris time. And of course, we were super jet lagged because we're not from Paris. So it was already late, but then it was even later for us, and we were super tired. So we had collected our bags, and then we had stepped outside to arrivals, and we were trying to connect to the Wi-Fi just so we could like call an Uber or something. And after a minute or two of trying to connect to the Wi-Fi and just having some difficulties, I gave up, and we decided to kind of like walk around and see if we could find a taxi. And as we started to leave, this gentleman approached us. I shouldn't say gentleman, but he approached us, and French accent, he's just like, oh, you know, are you looking for a taxi? You're needing a taxi. I have a taxi over here. And I was just a little hesitant because I was just like, I was thinking we'd find one rather than be approached by a taxi driver. But my husband is like, okay, sure. And he starts walking with this guy. And I was like, okay, is this a taxi driver? Did my Uber go through? Did the Wi-Fi connect? Like, what is happening? And so I just questioned him. I was just like, oh, you're my Uber driver? He's like, yeah, I'm your Uber driver. Because I had this gut feeling too. And all of a sudden when he said that, it felt like I got punched in the stomach. Because he had first said that he was a cab driver. And now he's saying he's an Uber driver. So I'm like, what's going on? So right after this guy says that he's our Uber driver, we have this other guy who's like this older gentleman. He's running up behind us, and he has like a really heavy French accent, and he's just like, no, don't go with this man. This is a bad man. Don't trust this man. And I was just like instantly in that moment validated in that gut feeling that I had of like, okay, something is wrong right now. So the older gentleman, after trying to explain that this is a bad man, that the original guy kind of like backed off after that. Like, he wasn't interested in giving us a ride anymore. And then the older gentleman pointed over to the queue of taxis that we had somehow missed to the left, and he explained that the taxis would always be yellow. They'd always had the sign on top that said Parisian taxi, or I forget specifically what it said, but he, informed us that that was the, like, official taxi of Paris, and to not really go with anyone else, not trust anyone else. So obviously we did make it to our hotel safely, but it taught us a few valuable lessons. It taught us to do some research before going to a country that we're not familiar with, like different scams and stuff. And it also taught us not to be so trusting, because apparently that is a scam that goes on in, I guess, Paris, but I don't know if it goes on anywhere else, of where someone will pose as like a taxi cab driver or an Uber driver, and they will take you to an undisclosed location and give you a good 1-2, and then steal your stuff, and or worse. So yeah, be careful when you're traveling, and always trust your gut, because you never know, but intuition is there for a reason.
Stitch this video and tell me about a time that your intuition saved you. My beautiful friend Medium Haley has just uploaded this question to her Instagram stories, and I love reading responses to this. And it reminded me of the time when I was much younger and backpacking by myself through Europe. I was driving through Germany at nighttime because I needed to be in the Netherlands the next day. And when you're young and you're backpacking through another country, you kind of do anything to save $1. Now, because I'd already splurged on hiring a rental car, for the most part, I was just sleeping in my rental car. I would just randomly pull up at truck stops on the side of the highway, which are mostly very, very safe. So anyway, I'm driving through Germany at nighttime. I start getting tired, so I just think I'm just going to pull over at the next truck stop so I don't have an accident. So I pulled into the next truck stop. This truck stop wasn't really like normal truck stops that I would stay at. Like, the normal truck stops that I would stay at were like well lit. There were service stations. There were people and going all the time. So it kind of just always felt safe. This one, however, was on the side of the highway. The only light that there was the lights from the motorway, but it was full of trucks. So I just kind of felt safe. I was like, I'll just kind of nudge myself in amongst the trucks and just sleep. So it's late at night. I pull up in my little Toyota Corolla, and there were two trucks kind of facing each other. And so I just drove in between them and parked there. Now, because it is late at night and it's so dark, anyone would be able to see that I was by myself, because the dash had obviously lit up the cabin of my car. So anyone looking would be able to see that it's a young girl traveling by herself. As soon as I pulled up, I immediately felt off. I tried to brush it off, and I just climbed into the back, pulled out my sleeping bag. But as I was trying to get settled, it was like my intuition was just screaming at me. Like, it was loud, and it was telling me to get the F out of there. Within seconds, I had already jumped back into the driver's seat, turned my car on. And as I did that, Lights coming from the traffic on the motorway lit up the area next to my car. There was the silhouette of a man standing next to my car on this side. Now, I'd already turned my car on. I chucked that baby in reverse, and as I chucked it in reverse, the reverse lights of my car lit up a man standing at the back of my car, like up against the window. Now, I was already in flight mode. I put my foot on that accelerator and reversed back as quickly as I could. I still to this day do not know how I didn't hit the person standing there, because he was right there. Then, of course, as I'm reversing out, my headlights illuminate another man standing on this side of my car. So there were a minimum of 1, 2, 3 men surrounding my car at the time. I didn't hang around. I chucked it in drive. I took off down the motorway. I drove throughout the whole night just on adrenaline. Like, I was not pulling over until I got to my destination the next day. Even now, I still recount that experience with so much detail. And I often recount it and sit there and ask myself, like, was I overreacting? And I feel my guides tell me, no, it would have been so bad for you if you stayed. Like, I feel that message so clearly whenever I recount this experience.
What is the time that you listened to your intuition and it saved your life?
Back in 2006, when my daughter was about 2 years old, we were on the way to the bus stop. It had snowed the night before, so the roads were horrible. So we're in a rush. I'm kind of hurrying along the sidewalk. Out of nowhere, she stops and goes, Mommy, look at the angels, look at the angels. So I look up, and at the roof of this house, I don't see anything. I'm like, we gotta go, we're running late. And then she's like, no, Mommy, look, they're saying hi. And then she's like waving. And I'm like, we gotta go, we're gonna be late, there's nothing there. So as I bend down to pick her up, I look up, I see this car run a red light, hit the car that's going this way. It hits it so hard that it flips and it slams into the house just a couple feet in front of us. Had we not stopped to look at the angels, we would have been standing there waiting to cross the street to get to the bus stop. So yeah.
Tell me your craziest story about intuition and how it ended up being true. I want to be freaked out. I want to hear these.
Okay, so I had the freakiest thing happen to me when I was living in LA. I was living in West Hollywood off of 3rd Street, which, if you know Los Angeles, it's a very popular street for bars, really nice restaurants, but also there's a lot of drunks. One day I lived in a really small building, and one day I was going to go throw out the trash in the dumpster in the back. There was this car there that I didn't recognize, and immediately I got annoyed because I was like, this street is going to hell. Like one of those. And I just got an immediate intuitive hit that I was like, do not engage with this person. Do not engage, do not engage, do not engage. And I could kind of see out of the periphery of my eye that there's a person, seemed like a man, in the front seat, and their posture was like this. And I just immediately was like, that drunk person is going to wake up with the worst neck ache ever. And like, I was just like, you know what? I don't know what they're on or whatever. Like my surface brain is like, I don't know what they're on. They could be dangerous. I have no idea. Just throw away the trash. But you know what I did is like, I was like, I just knew not to look. I knew not to look. My intuition was like, girl, do not look. But what I did, because I'm still me, I threw the trash in the trash can and I slammed the door just to see if they were like a drunk person that was sitting there, and then maybe they would get startled by that. No. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna leave this. I'm gonna let this play out, whatever. And I went back inside without engaging or really looking. Cut to like 20 minutes later, there's helicopters surrounding my building, like LAPD surrounding my building. And then the cops come. The cops are surrounding my building, like taped off and everything like that, because the man that was back there in the car had unalived himself. Like, boop. And that's why he was like this, because he was not alive. And even worse, he had just come from unaliving his girlfriend, the girl that broke up with him, on the street. Pow. And also then her dog, it was her and her dog, unalived them on the street, and then drove to my building, which is where she lived when they first met. That's how he knew about the little parking lot, because it's a small building. But I was like, so why our building? That's why. Because when they met, she lived in one of the units. And so that's why he chose to unalive himself there after like, yo, thank God I listened to my intuition, because I know that I would need years of therapy if I had seen that. If I had actually seen it. I mean, I was like, I needed some therapy after that period, but like, if I had actually seen it, the you know, I would not. So I thank God that I listened to my intuition.